Was there a lot of camaraderie and candor between, like, editors and you know, how you interacted with each other as far as...
More than there is now.
Yeah, yeah.
We talked on the phone. We basically were a network.
Of friends. You became friends through.
We talked. We wrote each other a lot, and you know, it was the best way to get your zine known to a lot of people. There were fanzines that just did reviews. There was one fanzine called Science Fiction Review, done by Richard E. Geis, he made his living writing softcore porno novels, but he was one of the most popular science fiction fan writers around at the time. And a review his circulation was in the thousands, and it was mimeographed. If you got a review or a mention in one of those, you were pretty much set. You would suddenly get dozens of letters, and a couple of dealers started to buy our stuff, and then the people that bought from them would order their next issue from us, and it happened really fast in '75. Like over a period of about 3 months, it just exploded. We went from doing a couple of hundred copies to a couple of thousand, and that was the easiest way to get your name out there, was just to get a nice plug someplace. So you send out a lot of free copies, and then it turns into a nightmare.
So it became daunting at one point when it started to explode, that how am I going to really deal with this?
Well, say in January of 1975, 4 or 5 months later, I was suddenly having to address 400 envelopes. Then I had to box up a couple of hundred copies for this dealer or that, and you spend all your time doing that. Then you answer letters for 2 or 3 hours a night, and then you know you've got a wife and kid that says, "Well, what about us?" You know? And it just gets to be too much. It really does. I don't know how Leo lasted 5 years. Well, he didn't have a wife and child. That probably helped a lot, but also he didn't have the circulation that we had back then. It was amazing. If you wanted to find out anything about what was going to be published or what was going to come out in a couple of months, you subscribed to all the Howard Fanzines. And between the 4 or 5 of us, we had something coming out every 3 or 4 weeks. So there was always some new source of information, and we talked on the phone. Byron Rourke and I got into it almost right away. Byron was big on feuds. Then suddenly one day he called me, and we both laughed about our feud and became friends. And I talked to Byron about once a month. Arnie Finner and I would talk about once a week. And the other people weren't quite as close as we were, but we still all kept in touch and helped each other out. And we always knew what the other was going to do next week, because it was news. So you know, we were sort of the substitute for the internet. We're not going to
in getting the information that everyone craves out there.
Yeah. Well, we're not Al Gore, but we actually invented the internet.
Snail mail network.
Right. Yeah. You know, Dennis was talking about, you know, getting the positive word out and getting the free plugs. I didn't make a mistake, but when my first issue had an article about Red Sonja, you know, the Marvel version versus the Howard version. So I sent a copy to Roy Thomas, and you know, see if he would, you know, because he was plugging the other zines, see if he would plug my zine, and he didn't like that article, so he never plugged my zines. He told me, sent me a letter back, said, "I'm not going to plug your zines."
You were writing about the real.
Right, yeah. So I guess so he didn't want to, you know. So he never plugged them. So
I think I was the only fanzine guy that never said anything bad about Marvel Comics. So Roy liked me.
Yeah, Arnie and Rourke were they tried not to, but I think they may have said a few things that offended them. So they were pretty opinionated, but they still.
Rourke was very opinionated.
Yeah. So
you still had to be careful with the bigger boys as far as playing the politics with them.
Yeah.
Has the internet made this sort of work harder or easier? Or?
It's almost made it obsolete.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, now we don't need to do more than a couple of hundred copies because it's the collectors that want the stuff now.
Right.
We don't really serve the same purpose. Now you can get your news, you can find out anything that's going on every day, and there just wasn't that back then. But it still worked. I mean, we literally covered everything that was going to happen. I mean, it was amazing but people would write to us. They would send us, this is an advanced promo copy of what we're going to do, and we got a lot of freebies too. That was really nice. Yeah. Fringe benefits.
And I know personally, Glenn Lord was a big help to me with the news items, because he would give me all the scoop on what was coming out, what he was working on, in those early years. So.
Yeah, a letter from Glenn was a precious thing. You rip it open to see what he had to say.
Yeah.
One of the purposes, of course, that fanzine served early on was you guys were publishing Unseen Robert E. Howard, and that was a big boost to the fans out there who, we had no access to unpublished Howard manuscripts, but we could get that through the fanzines, and Damon and Dennis both were real big on making sure that there was unpublished Howard that got into their fanzines and got out to see everybody, for everybody to read. So that's one huge purpose of the fanzines.
I think the reason we do fanzines is, sort of the same reason that all of you are here right now. You're, serious fans, maybe a little bit obsessed enough to come brave this heat here, and it's the same thing, except that maybe we just are a little bit crazier. It's partly a creative thing too. You have an urge to create something, and you want people to know that you're a big fan of this or that, and it kind of drives you it motivates you a little bit. And of course, what keeps us going is appreciation for what we do. We get letters and things like that. It really boosts us and makes us want to do more.
And of course, Dennis has gotten into not only fanzine publishing, but actual book publishing. So we're grateful to him for that. He's everything he learned doing fanzines, now he just transferred that into making books, and they've been pretty spectacular. The one that he's just completed, are there any copies left on the gift shop?
I think so.
Just completed is a tribute to our friend Glenn Lord. And it's an anthology with not only with tributes from a number of Glenn's fans and friends, but there's also Robert E. Howard stories in here. The stories that were printed in the Howard Collector can be found in this book. So it's a really nice little item. There's a couple of really good photographs in here. I'll let you find those for yourself. And but this is it's a marvelous little book, and it's a great tribute to our friend Glenn Lord. And there may or may not be any of these left down at the gift shop, but they're going to be available on Monday. Is that right? Via Lulu, maybe.
Maybe not. I don't know. I've had some problems with them, and I don't know what's going to happen. I've actually pulled all of my stuff off sale from Lulu.
So what would be the story on how people can get a copy of this?
I'll know Monday or Tuesday. Sorry.
Well, there's several times I've gone to find a story because I need it for something, and the only way you can get it is through one of the old fanzines. It's not available through any other source, and so unless you have a copy of that fanzine, you can't get a copy of, you can't read that story. So a lot of those were really valuable for that as a source.
We can thank you guys for that.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
Well, I always thought that if nothing else, you needed to have at least one little thing by Howard in a Howard fanzine.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference too in how collectible it's going to be. 50 years from now, you're not going to pay $100 for, say, no offense to Leo, but the Sumerian will never be probably worth as much money as some of the 70s stuff because they have Howard in them and the Sumerian doesn't. It's a great magazine. I love it, but it's not going to be as collectible as some of the old stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a comment from, I remember from being a kid and getting some Amora, some of the fanzines, is that nowadays with the internet, you can find any community you want. You just go to a computer and you get involved in a conversation or anything. But back then it was really hard to find a community. As a kid in a small town, I didn't know anybody else who liked Robert E. Howard.
Yeah.
But if I got Amora or E.R. Beatum, all of a sudden there were other people and adults who liked it, and I was part of a community.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought was, I mean, even beyond the original material, just feeling like you weren't weird, that you liked this stuff, and
Yeah.
you could share the enthusiasm was really an important thing that the fanzines, gave to me.
Well, there were fan gatherings, conventions is where we always met up. It's well like this. This is a lot like a convention, and it's fantastic to have this to come to every year. It really is. It's kind of better than just it's not watered down and spread out. It's all right here. I love this little town.
I love the camaraderie that happens when all of us meet up, regardless whether a collector or just a fan or the main participants. There's a warmth between all of us.
We might fight all year long online, but when we come here, these are our best friends.
Yeah, yeah.